Well, Mr. Chairman, I can't even express how disappointed I am.
Really?
You know, in 2013, when I took over this Senate, we had no budget reserve at all. Nothing. Not one penny. We owed the schools a bunch of money. The June accelerated payment was higher than it is today. And we went to work in this room and fixed it. And then in 2014, we were sitting on the House's tax conformity bill. They passed it, came down to this room, and Senator Scully, who chaired the committee then, and me as the leader, decided it was too expensive and we shouldn't pass it. And we sat on that thing for 3 weeks. And the governor had a press conference and he kicked me all down the street for not passing tax conformity. So one of the things that Senator Scully and I did is we put in law a mechanism to rebuild the budget reserve in 2014. And we captured a third of any surplus money in the November forecast so that we could start to build a budget reserve. So when the next downturn comes, we'd have some money to be able to build a bridge over revenue shortfalls. That's what the budget reserve was intended for. $491 million out of the budget reserve at a time when we have 2.1 GDP growth. What are we going to do when we get to the years of 1.4, which is what the forecast says? That's where we're going. And that wasn't enough. The spenders, and when I was tax chair, I never ever met with the spenders, and we had like 8 of them. Mr. Chairman, I think you got like 9 or 10 of them. And the last thing the tax chair should do is get in the room with the spending chairs, because you could never give them enough, Mr. Chairman. I'm aware of that. And it's unfortunate that you let them, or that the leader let them, somebody let them, steal $491 million out of the budget reserve, and it didn't end there. They still didn't have enough. So they sold $48 million of TANF money that used to come to this committee to help pay for the working family credit, and I would argue that federal money should help pay for the working family credit. So they stole another $48 million out of this committee because they still didn't have enough. And it gets even worse. And I don't know anything about this agreement because I've been no part of it, and I ain't having no part of it because it stinks. Because 2 years from now, we're going to be sitting here with real problems, and people in this room are going to have to take really tough votes again in order to right the ship. But they still didn't have enough. So the little bit I know about the agreement, they decided that, guess what? On June 30th, if there's any money left, let's get 63 million more before it ever gets to November, because if it gets to November, then the reserve is going to get some of it. So they took another 63 million. If the books settle up, and we'll know by September if the 63 million is there, because we just couldn't give them enough money. There either is not enough revenue in this budget or too much spending. Maybe a little of both are wrong. But depleting the state's budget reserves at a time of 2.1% GDP growth is terrible. But there are $626 million here of reserve type money that the spending committees took. And we are going to have big trouble in 2 years from now. I mean, unless, I hope the forecast is wrong. I hope the forecast is wrong and we're going to see better GDP growth going forward. But I have kind of learned over time they've been pretty darn accurate. So, Mr. Chairman, I just want to express a great deal of frustration